tonight. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and give a brief introduction to Allynn. So Allynn is a Spanish teacher at Thayer Academy near Boston in Massachusetts. And she is the author of the forthcoming The Teacher's Guide to the Our Story series coming out this summer, which we're all super excited about. We've been working with Allynn to talk about this book, and she's really excited to share that with you guys coming soon. So without further ado, I will go ahead and cede the floor to Allynn, who's going to be talking to us tonight about her best techniques for classroom management in the world language classroom. Thanks for being here, Allynn.
Thanks. Welcome, everyone. As Spencer mentioned, the topic for tonight is classroom management, and I think it's a timely topic because it's May and we're coming down the home stretch here. And I don't know about at your schools, but we offer the AP exams. So I had some students missing class for AP exams, and the seniors are getting ready to wrap things up. And it was also prank week for us. Believe it or not, our seniors, this was so bizarre and funny, but they hired a bagpiper to follow our principal around in the hallway yesterday. So needless to say, the energy at school has been a little strange, and behavior has been lax, to say the least. And so, yeah, for classroom management, the biggest issues I'm seeing right now are students having their cell phones out a little bit more, lapsing into English during transition periods. But of course, classroom management, it runs the whole gamut. So you could also have issues like a really disruptive student, or meanness happening in class. And just recently, I had a more disruptive situation. This was last Friday, last period. And I had been thinking that I feel confident in my classroom management now. I feel like I have systems in place that help me keep those types of issues at bay. But sure enough, this senior, during a competition, he called another student a loser. First of all, he broke into English to do it, and he put an L on his forehead, and then he threw a marker, and it broke. And so I handled the situation in the moment, but I left school Friday last period, and I was thinking, gosh, like, I don't know if I handled that right. It kind of stuck with me throughout the weekend, and I felt like I need to come back to what my expectations are, how I'm following through on consequences. Even though it's May, this stuff still matters. And so I share that story just to say that students will always test us, even if we have come a long way in our classroom management or are a leader in that in our schools. Students will always test, and we'll always have moments where we don't handle things 100% correctly. And no matter what, it's not too late. You can come back on Monday, or you can come back, if it's today, you can come back tomorrow, and you can remind your students of what your expectations are, and set that fresh slate. And then lastly, I offer it because I think it's just nice to hear that other teachers are going through ups and downs, and having these kinds of issues come up. It makes you not feel as alone. So I offer that, I guess, as the first thing tonight. If you want to put in the chat some classroom management issues that you're struggling with, or pet peeves, I guess, that drive you nuts in your classroom and that you don't always know how to handle, I think it would be nice to just see what some of those things are. And if you don't have access to your chat, if you're on your phone or something, you can feel free to unmute and just share. So we'll see if anyone wants to throw a few things out there. Lorraine, lots of phones. Yeah. I think too, since the pandemic, with students relying so much on technology and connecting so much over their phones, I've seen such an uptick in it since we've gone back to school. Chatty students in English, I'm dealing with that too. In global cultures, talking back. Students that can't keep their hands to themselves. Rachel, I'm wondering if you're a middle school teacher. When I taught middle school, that was a huge issue for me in middle school, high school. Interesting. Definitely at the middle school level, I saw that so much. Stacy, students cutting class, high schoolers acting like middle schoolers. Rose, is that like with respect to just immaturity, like immature comments or?
Yeah, immaturity in terms of the way they socialize with one another and the way that they speak to teachers. Yeah. Like lack of coping skills.
Yeah. So these are things I completely relate to too, and I'm sure everyone that's logged on, has these issues, and so how do we deal with them? I think there's no one set answer, as with so many things, but there are two strategies that for me have provided a pathway forward for making me feel pretty confident and in control of my classes. The situation that I mentioned this past Friday, I think why it bothered me so much was it made me feel like that student, this particular student, like he could just pull a thread and my class was like a sweater that could just unravel based on this student. And I felt like that a lot in my earlier teaching, that, this one student or that one student, they held the power. If they were off that day, the whole class could come undone. And that's not a good feeling. And I don't feel that way too often anymore. So I want to share some of those strategies tonight. And it could be food for thought, maybe some of the things you'd consider in your class, or maybe you do them too, and it just reinforces what you're already doing. So the first strategy is that I post my classroom rules. Is there anyone else that does that has their classroom rules like visibly posted next to their board? You could just type yes or give a hand raise. Yes, okay, yes. I think this has been a very powerful practice for me. And what got me doing it, I'll share my screen here. If you have, wait, I lost my screen again. Let me try this again. If you have been on the Teachers Discovery website, you may have seen Ben Slavik's classroom rules. I think this gets circulated a lot in different CI trainings. And so when my fellow teachers and I were leaning into CI, we bought this and we put it up on our classroom walls. And then, it just kind of became white noise, because over time, I realized that I wasn't really, oh, my dog is going crazy. I don't know if you can hear this outside, but we weren't really like referring to the 50% or to actors and artists or things like that. So it wasn't really working, but I loved the concept of it. I loved the idea. Actually, this natural approach to teaching is where I first learned about this idea. And I really hope my dog's okay. It's going nuts. Is where I first learned about this idea. And the way that they talk about presenting the classroom rules is that you post them, and then when a student undergoes does some sort of infraction, you just walk up to your rules and you point to the one that the student has violated. And you don't target a student in particular, you look out at the whole class. And you just kind of hold a blank expression on your face. You're waiting for them to, finish doing what they're doing. You're not really frazzled. You're just waiting for them to stop doing what they're doing. And you keep doing this and keep doing this and keep doing this, no matter how many times you interrupt yourself to show that you will stop and like gather control of the class. And then they do also say that you can eventually target a student. You can look a student in the eyes if you have a repeat offender. And then they offer ideas for escalating over time. And I think that it depends what your particular school system is. It depends if you have a robust system that you can rely on. I've worked in two different scenarios where one school system that I worked in, there was strict protocols for everything. And I loved it as a new teacher because I didn't really have to think. I had this toolkit that I could borrow from. And right now I teach in an independent school where the students are generally pretty well behaved, but we don't necessarily have the most like tight discipline system for that reason. It's a lot of having conversations, and it, you know, detention is like a little vague. And so sometimes that makes it hard to figure out how you're going to handle a situation when not everyone's adopting the same set of rules. So the rules that I ended up coming up with, I'll share here. My dog has finally stopped barking, everybody. Oh my goodness. So here are, no, can you see that? Yes, okay. Here are the rules that I ended up adopting. It's called Talk, and this actually comes from an activity, an interpersonal boot camp that was introduced to me by a teacher named Rebecca Blowwolf. She's the ACTFL Teacher of the Year a couple years back, and she presented this at a conference. And this particular guide was made by a teacher named Natalie Delat. Here's her little contact information here. She's at natadel76. She's a French and a Russian teacher who has a blog and is pretty active on Twitter. So she turned this into a PDF. And basically this activity, this interpersonal activity, is one where you pair students in groups of 4 or 5, and you give them, you know, open-ended questions, and they discuss, and you evaluate them on these criteria. So talk, the T is talking in the target language, just staying in there, committing to not speaking in English. The A for accuracy is just emphasizing that you're trying to get yourself understood. So you don't actually have to be accurate so much as be understood. So sometimes I tell my students that the A really stands for attempt to be understood. The L is for listening, so that you really are listening. When someone says something to you, you respond appropriately. And the K is for kindness, which is pretty self-explanatory. So I would, put my students into this little activity, and I would evaluate them. And over time, I started to think, gosh, these are my classroom rules. This isn't just for this activity, but overall, I want my students to speak in the target language. I want them to listen to one another, to be kind, and to really attempt to do their best. So I ended up getting this blown up into poster size, and I put it on my wall. And that would be my strongest suggestion to you, that if you do have classroom rules, that you get them professionally drawn up. You could ask your art department, or you could ask, maybe you have a graphic design department at your school that could get this looking professional. Oh, my dog's at it again. And I think that it kind of reminds me of, when you see no cell phones, or no smoking, or no parking, like the second you see a nice professionally done sign, I think that it just lends a certain amount of seriousness to what you're asking for. So yeah, I think that would be the first step in classroom rules. So I want to stop and see if anyone has questions about that.
Can we get a copy of yours, of the talk? Is that available?
Yes, I'm going to put, that's actually, so in the forthcoming book, the teacher's guide, this will be in there. It's going to be digital and paper, so you can get it in there. And that's where you'll be able to get it. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. So related to that is the next piece of classroom management, which is, you're still seeing my screen? No, okay. Let me share this next piece. Spencer, can you take over for 1 second? I'm worried something's going on with my dog. Just take over 1 second.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Happy to help there. Do we have any, just as a reminder, as we go along here, and Ellen checks on her dog, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Or if, as she mentioned, you would prefer to speak out loud at the end, that's always an option as well.
Okay. When did you say the book is coming out? Her book is coming out?
It's coming out this summer. The final date is still being nailed down, I believe, Alan. I can't remember if it was a
Okay.
development. Hey, Alan, they're asking about the final date on the book. Did we settle on that like this week? I know
I
it's the
think
summer, but
I think July is
Yeah.
the general target date. So thank you for taking over in my absence. So
no worries.
the next piece of talk relates to a participation sheet, and that's the next thing that I want to share my screen and show you. So this is something that I was able to put together with the help of Kara Jacobs, who's a contributor to Voces. And she had done a participation sheet, and I'll put this one in the chat. So she had created a participation sheet with different criteria for her students and had talked to me about it. And I basically based mine off of hers. And you can see on the left-hand side here that I repeated TALK, the acronym that I use as part of my classroom rules. And I added some other things that related to, I guess, the things we talked about at the beginning of this session. The types of like little pet peeves or little disruptions that you don't want to see, I built them into this participation sheet. And Kara suggested having like 10 distinct categories, each worth 10 points. This was the original iteration of it, so that the participation sheet could add up to 100. And let me put this in the chat now, so you guys can open it if you're on Google. And so I initially tried it with it all adding up to 100, but because I was a point-based teacher, the participation guide was really throwing off my overall averages. And then I decided, I don't know if I want this to be a part of students' actual grade. Maybe I just want it to be more like a conversation. And so now you can see this is left over. These directions in red were from when we were on Zoom. But I just had students rate themselves check plus, check, or check minus in each category. And I decided that I would hand this out to them about every 3 weeks. And so, yeah, so it was kind of like keeping them in constant conversation about what the expectations were. And then I would look at what they said, and sometimes I would say C or put a big check on it, or I would circle and say, you know, I actually think you could improve here, sometimes for participation or no English. Or I'd love to hear more from you. And it's just been a nice way to I guess, remind students of what, like this, not, you know, this check plus category, this is what for me and at my school, these are the things that lead to an ideal learning scenario. And, you know, depending, you know, times where I felt like I really did need to add extra emphasis to student behavior, I might say, okay, then the next one I'm going to put it in there as a participation grade, and I might have it count as points. And so some of these may or may not be applicable to you in your teaching scenario. Like I have something here about body language. And I know that could mean so many different things depending on your student population. So you would obviously tweak it to fit your school's culture and general expectations of students. But like, for instance, this punctuality and attendance one, I think this has made a difference. Like you email and you meet with the teacher if you miss a significant amount of time, or if you miss a significant amount of class. I had students that took the AP. I gave this out recently. I actually gave this sheet out again after the incident with the student throwing the marker and saying loser. And I find that whenever I give it out, I see like a certain change in students' demeanor the following day or the following couple days. And so students are in APs this week, and I had students email me like, I just wanted to let you know I'm missing class. I have an AP exam. I already had a list of who was in the AP, but I think this has helped them like consider the types of things that I value. And I've also talked to them. It's not just I value it. It's also that I think these elements lead to the best learning outcomes. So putting talk in here, both on the board and as a part of participation, and having it be kind of like this conversation back and forth, or this check-in, has been really useful to me, and I think has helped me like make super clear what I'm expecting of students. And so, yes, I think these are the two main strategies. So I wanted to, I guess, take any other questions at this time or elaborate. If anyone has. And then I'm looking at the chat too. Where would you put swearing language? That is a Jean. Yeah, so I just had this happen. I have a student who I found out has Asperger's, who has sworn 3 times, and not like F-bombs, but he's used some other swears. And yeah, I handled that one more individually. But you could, if you feel like that's an overarching problem at your school, I think you could create a category for it. Maybe in here, it might be sincerity, or it might be positivity. It could be participation or no interrupting. You could determine what that falls under. But yeah, I think these, Kara helped me envision this, but hers looks different than mine, because I was thinking, what are the issues that I tend to have, and that I want to nip in the bud, and those could be particular to me and just my style. It could be my school culture versus her school culture. So I think this was a great thing for me to riff off of, and now you have my version. So if you want to create something similar, either for a grade or just to have this check plus kind of conversation, I think this could work well. Christine, do you include technology abuse, cell phones? That's a really good question too. I mentioned that I had taught in 2 types of schools. So the previous school or program had like a very concrete, direct way of handling that type of stuff. My current school doesn't. I think we're trying to figure out as a school, we say phones should be off and out of sight, but they're absolutely not. They're rampant. We say no phones in the cafeteria. They're everywhere. I don't think we've figured it out. And so, yeah, I mean, technology abuse might be something, Christine, that I put into this next year, because it's really ramped up as a problem. And so especially if you want to do it as a grade, you could have like supplies. I bring all my supplies, and one of them could be like, my cell phone has never been visible. I put my cell phone away immediately. I need reminders about my cell phone. How about students who imitate a Spanish accent to mock it rather than show appreciation? I do have that in here. That's been one. So down here under sincerity, your body language comments attempt at an accent and preparation reflect your seriousness of purpose and dedication. That's how I chose to phrase that, because yes, I've had that issue too. Points wise, how do you grade this? So Rose, right now, I'm not grading it. I'm having it as a check plus, check minus scale. And like students will say, how much does this count for? What is a check plus worth? I mean, they're always very points obsessed. And I've kind of given this vague answer recently where I've said, this is to my discretion at the end of the year. If you're right on the fringe between 2 grades, having a strong participation score, I'll round you up. I don't know. I've been kind of vague because I'm at the type of school where we don't have an open grade book. So we have that kind of liberty. If you're at a school that has a very visible grade book, then you do have to grade it. And this is geared to be worth off 100 points. So each one's worth 10. The like leftmost column, you could say that's 10 to 9 points. Like a 10 out of 10 is like, I've been perfect, right? And a 9 would be like, I've been an A. And then the middle column could be like an 8 to a 7. So like B, C, and then the last column could be like a 6 or below, which would be basically failing. Or however you want to do it, or you could do, it could only be a 9, 7, and a 5, or however you want to do that range. But theoretically, it could add up to 10 points, or 100 points, 10 for each category. Okay. I have a question for you. So my question for you all would be, this is one I wanted to ask earlier, but was distracted by my dog. I wanted to ask how much you feel that your school offers you support in terms of your classroom management. So on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being like, I feel like it's all on me, like I have to create these systems on my own, to 5 being my school has a toolkit, everyone's on board. I'm just curious what atmosphere people are operating in. Oh, okay. 3 and above. That's good. I think we're all very jealous of Alfredo. He gave his school 4.5. That's awesome. Yeah. I do feel, having had the 2 experiences, that if you have your fellow colleagues on board, and even if it's not coming from the school, but you could be the leader, you could say, hey, department, I want to try and do this in my class. What do you all think? Or I have these classroom rules in my class. Let's all use the same ones. I think just getting a group of people, a small group, pulling from the same toolkit does wonders for expectations across the board, or just fortifying your own ability to enforce something. Lorraine's saying, I feel like I might have different issues in my class than teachers who use a lot of technology-based lessons. We're a one-to-one tech school. So that means you are using a lot of technology, right, Lorraine?
So all the kids have their own Chromebook that was issued by the school, but I don't ever use it in my classroom because they're in person, and I do stories and activities with them and paper activities. I almost never do a technology thing because it's just so distracting.
Oh, interesting. Now, are you a Voces subscriber? Are you using the Our Story curriculum?
No, I am not, but I got an email and I was super interested in the classroom management piece. And so, yeah, this has been great.
Oh, great. Awesome. Yeah. So, Voces Digital, the curriculum is primarily online, with maybe some, maybe a foray into like a paper product in the future, but you can print the different activities. And I have an old school teacher. She's 77, my colleague. She's the best. And she has just adopted Voces this year, but she prints everything out, and she gives stuff, the stories and stuff, to the students on paper for that reason, Lorraine, that I think she just feels more comfortable. And I think too, this is something I talk about in the teacher's guide, though Voces is online. Factoring in times where your students are not on the screen is absolutely key. So like, are you saying that taking them off the screen ends up being sort of a classroom management strategy on your part?
Yeah, for sure. I have lots of kids that just cannot focus, and they spend basically all day in their other classes doing assignments on their Chromebook. So they're on screens a lot, and some of them just cannot. And then there's always the students who, when they do have an activity online, it's so hard to get them to do what they're supposed to do. I teach middle school, and so they're all into their games and their outside things that they're doing. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's really true. And I think that's a factor that you do want to consider when you're using an online book. And that's definitely something I'm always thinking about, that balance. One of the chapters in the book, I talk about activities by category, and one of the categories is just brain breaks. So things that don't relate to an online screen and don't necessarily even relate to the curriculum, but are just things that get them moving or get them laughing and interacting with one another, or, like classroom rapport in and of itself. This is a topic for another day, but the special person interviews, the star of the day interviews, in Voces, they're referred to as our class, our story, and they're paired with the personalized questions in the beginning levels, and they're I think linked, and they're put in the appendix, I think, in the upper levels. But just building rapport too has been a massive classroom management strategy for me. Building it in this way, of course, I always, and all of us, we're always seeking ways to find connections, but to actually have like a pathway to build those connections that is tied to the curriculum has been like hugely positive for me, and has helped. I think it's both. It's like having a consequence system and then having like all this positivity happening in your class so that the problems aren't like surging as much in the first place. Just looking at Rose's comment here. Getting them to pay attention to me and to their classmates that are speaking. So for me, I'm going to go back to this talk poster that will be in the teacher's guide. But yeah, the one that I point to the most is the L, is listening. And I actually just I had a teacher go on personal leave at my school. And so I got one of her classes. Wow, another class in April. And I was so nervous because it's like the first day of school all over again. I walked in, it was mostly a male dominated class, all these like sporty boys in the back, all talking to one another. And I felt those butterflies of the first day of school. And right away I said, oh, I need to tell you guys about my classroom rules. Here they are. I was teaching in a different classroom. I didn't have my glossy poster, and I just put them on the margin of the board. And I said, I'm going to bring my poster the next time. And I didn't have time to get the graphics guy to make me the big poster. So I just printed this out 8.5 by 11 and stuck it right on the edge of the board. And then the whole next day, I was just looking out at them like, I'm waiting for you to finish. And this is what my teachers used to do when I was younger. I mean, they would stop and give you that awkward silence. And we probably all grew up with that. But what I really like about this is that you're getting the awkward silence plus the reason. And yeah, I think like if you haven't tried something like that, it's so simple. And I really wasn't sure. I just read about it and I thought, gosh, this is something I haven't tried. I'll try it. And I don't know, it's like all powerful. It really works for me. I have another colleague who I taught next to for many years, and he runs a super tight ship. Nobody messes with him. But he also isn't afraid to really come down hard and raise his voice. And that's not me. So I think we all have to kind of juggle like what suits our style. And this one just felt simple and like straightforward, and it has worked really well for me. Any other questions or comments that people want to share just on the topic of classroom management in general?
I just confused the original list of rules that you showed us about, listen with intent and all of that. Is that replace it or? It
is replacing it. Yes. Okay. I think that I didn't necessarily explain that so clearly. Okay. My dog was like, rah, rah, rah.
No, that's fine. Is that available to look at again?
It is. Yes. This is on Teachers Discovery. So I'll put this in the chat. This is the link.
Okay.
Let me get back to everyone. And this is the classroom rules that were developed by Ben Slavic, who's the author of The Natural Approach to Stories. And so this is the first set that like I bought and put on the wall, but then I found that I wasn't teaching in that style. So I didn't really have actors. I wasn't using the expression, do your 50%. So it it just became white noise. It wasn't something that I was like able to directly point to in the same way, but I loved his idea of it. I loved the professionalism of the poster and the way that he looked out generally and then would eventually like address a student directly and then move on to his school's, you know, discipline system. I know plenty of teachers that use it. It just didn't really resonate with me. And what ultimately did was this one was talk.
Yeah.
So that's on my wall now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. No, that clarifies that. They're both
Perfect.
interesting, but very different. So
Yeah, they are a little different. Maria says, if you have been teaching in the school for a few years, what do you think about implementing a new list of classroom rules all of a sudden? In this case, next school year. I teach at an elementary middle school. I think it's great. I mean, I think that's beautiful. I think that, you know, we always have to be like reevaluating. Does what I'm doing still work? Does it still resonate? Does it work for this group of people? And I think, you know, one of the things I talk about a lot in the teacher's guide is just like including your students more in your thought process or in your approach to them. A lot of times I would, you know, put forth these lessons or like put forth an activity and I knew why I was doing it, but I wouldn't really share that with them. And I've looped them into that more. And I mean, you're teaching at an elementary middle school, so they're not necessarily going to understand second language acquisition theory the way high school students might, but I think you can, I'm sure you're a pro at like taking a big concept and explaining it in a way that a younger child could understand. So you could say, you know, I have a new set of rules this year, like these rules matter to me for this reason, and we're going to try them. And I think it could work great. And you may even find that there's a way that your rules overlap with whatever you've been previously doing. Like when I look at Ben's rules, I'll go back to this initial thing. He says, one person speaks and the others listen. Rule number 2. That's the same as the L in talk. He says, do your 50%, listen with the intent to understand. For me, that's the A, which I mentioned to you guys, I call attempt. That's attempting to be understood. So there may be like crossover. It's just that you like package the rules or you organize them in a way that you feel like you can really point to this and you're confident about it and it's a helpful tool to you. And Maria says, I would streamline the rubric and simplify it for my grades. Are you talking about the talk rubric or the participation rubric? Participating. Yeah, you could definitely streamline it. You know, as with anything, this looks very much like the rubric that Kara showed me. And I liked that she had a lot of very specific criteria because it let me get so nitty gritty with them. But certainly you could streamline that into something different. So I think we have about 5 minutes left. If anyone has last questions or things to share, again, I think one of the big, you know, benefits of this community is just that we're all here sharing our ups and downs and swapping ideas with one another. I've made some good contacts through the chat. People, hey, send me your email. So I really thank you all for signing on tonight and being part of this. And you can always contact me. Here's my contact information if you have follow-up questions for me after this. And thanks, everyone. Spencer, I'll kick it back over to you.
Well, I'll take it actually,
Oh, okay.
because I'm here now. So what I heard was just amazing, Allynn. Thank you so much. That's just like such practical, like it's you know, these are ideas that I can just imagine so many teachers taking and like running with and making their own and, you know, being inspired by, and you make it seem very clear and just, you know, solid, well thought out. So yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I was about to put in the chat that if anyone had questions that they wanted to relay, like wanted me to relay to Allynn, you could email me, but you gave your email, so that's perfect. And I put also in the chat links to the teacher's guide to our story, along with a link where you can sign up, and you just get notification when it's out. And when we notify you, we'll give you a code that will allow you to get $5 off. And I'm not sure what was said at the beginning about that guide, but I just want to mention some highlights really quick. I mean, it's amazing and full of like awesome, insightful, quality insight into teaching a world language. You don't need a subscription to enjoy it. It's just wonderful. And it's going to be a physical book and a digital book, like you'll have both versions, and you don't have to choose. And yeah, it will be out this summer, you know, hopefully sooner in the summer, but definitely in the summer. And if you haven't yet, you know, not to get all, you know, not to pitch too much stuff, but we are having our summer conference the last week of July, and Allynn will be there in some capacity, and we'll be, you know, focusing a bit in some ways on her book there as well. So, you know, just lots to look forward to. Anyone have any last minute questions? We have a few minutes. Well, one last thing, I guess, is if we are truly done, is that this is Spencer's last week. So if you're a regular at our weekly webinars, unfortunately, Spencer won't be continuing to host them, but we will continue with them in some capacity, but they won't be the same without Spencer. But he's on to bigger and better things, and we're really excited for him, and he's helped us out. He really started the weekly webinar. So thank you, Spencer, for doing that.
Spencer.
No, thank you, Erin, and thank you, Allynn. It's been a pleasure to work with everyone, and it's been great to see some names that have come to a couple of these webinars, you know, and I've interacted with some of you before. So yeah, as always, appreciate the collaboration and the support. It's been really fun, and yeah, stay in touch. So thanks, Erin, appreciate that.
Yeah, and I don't know who's going to be next Wednesday, but there's going to be someone next Wednesday, so stay tuned. And then the week after that is Eric Richard and Bryce Hedstrom, which I'm not sure now if you mentioned Bryce today, Allynn, but he's mentioned in her book, and he does, you know, he's known for special person interviews. I don't actually know yet what they're talking about in 2 weeks, but it will be them too. And they're just excellent, wonderful presenters, coaches. So stay tuned for info on that. That'll be really good. And we'll do more Allynn webinars and special events too. So you'll be seeing her name in your inbox a lot. So awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here, and have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allynn.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Gracias. Tengan buen día.
Gracias.
Igualmente, gracias.
Oh, I got the link, Marie. I just put the link in there, Marie, to you where you can like learn more about it, and then you can click on and get the guide, which I'll put that link in there too, where you can sign up directly. Yep. Allynn, I was right about the number.
Oh yeah, you were right. That's true. I just figured I'd hang on for a little bit longer in case anybody had questions, but you guys are in charge of the Zoom room. So if you want to close up shop, no worries.
Yeah, we actually had someone just come in right now. So if anyone is joining us at this point, the recording will be available.
Yeah, and you can email me. I'll just put my email really quick. So if you want to grab my email from the chat, if you have any questions or want any more information about the guide, please do, or a copy of this webinar, please email me. But yeah, thank you so much, Allynn.
Thank you.
do, I don't know, it was just, I was like chatting Chris while you were presenting, and I really like your style, and I think it went really
thank
well.
you.
So
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it went great, Allynn.
Thanks for covering me while my dog has most she's a very calm dog, but she has the most ferocious bark that you could imagine. And she was going. And so I was thinking, oh my gosh, what is going on? So when I went out, our front door was open, and the storm door, like there must have been, sometimes that happens when like a raccoon or it's starting to be nighttime here. So I think there must have been some animal outside the front door that she just was not, shut the door and the barking stopped. But
oh my gosh.
yeah, I was completely distracted. So thanks for bearing
It's
with
okay.
me during that portion of the presentation.
I think everyone is so like used to Zoom interruptions,
yeah,
like it's,
that's so true.
we just have good stories from them. So
I know. I know.
Comes with the territory. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does seem like that stuff always sort of happens when you jump on the Zoom call. Almost.
yes.
Absolutely. When you're presenting.
Yeah, like when it's super important.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, well, again, if anyone's still listening, please email me or us or anyone with questions, and we will have another weekly webinar next week. So
Okay.
stay tuned. Thanks, Allynn. Thanks, Spencer.
Thank
And
you.
see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone. Bye.
Good night.